Start with a map, not a number. The dark blue shape across the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Midwest is PJM, a real electricity market and transmission planning region, not an abstract example. It crosses all or parts of 13 states and the District of Columbia. It serves major load centers, old industrial corridors, growing suburbs, factories, ports, homes, server rooms, hospitals, and ordinary summer air conditioning demand. That map is the point. A megawatt does not matter in the abstract. It matters in a place, at a time, under a rule, through wires that actually exist, to a load that is actually asking to be served. This episode is about the gap between the headline megawatt and the delivered megawatt. The headline number might be nameplate generation. It might be a Q total. It might be a forecast of future demand. It might be a project announcement. But inside a real grid region like PJM, those numbers pass through several filters before they become useful capacity. The first filter is load. PJM's January 2026 load forecast is not a press release about one sector. It is a 20-year forecast of peak loads, energy, load management, distributed solar, electric vehicles, batteries, zones, regions, locational deliverability areas, and the total RTO. The report says PJM's summer peak load is projected to average 3.6% annual growth over the next 10 years. By 2036, PJM forecasts summer peak at 222,106 megawatts, a 10-year increase of 65,733 megawatts. Winter peak also grows. The 2035 to 2036 winter peak is forecast at 204,650 megawatts, up 66,980 megawatts over 10 years. Those are large numbers, but PJM immediately shows why they cannot be used casually. The report defines most peak and energy values as non-coincident, unrestricted peaks after specified distributed solar and battery adjustments, after plug-in electric vehicle additions, and before load management reductions. It also explains that large load adjustments are not all treated the same. Near-term forecast years need firm commitments, such as electric service obligation or construction commitments. Longer-term projects are considered non-firm and are derated because they are more uncertain. That is the first lesson. A load forecast is not a claim that every announced facility is already energized. It is a method for deciding what the system must be ready to serve, with uncertainty handled explicitly. The second filter is the queue. PJM's Public Planning Queues XML is useful because it does not pretend that every project is in the same state. It has fields for maximum facility output, energy megawatts, capacity megawatts, and in-service megawatts. It has statuses like withdrawn, in service, active, engineering and procurement, confirmed, under construction, suspended, and partially in service. In the downloaded XML snapshot used for this packet, there are more than 9,000 project records. The summed maximum facility output field is far larger than the summed in service field. That contrast is visually powerful, but it must be narrated carefully. The XML includes historical and retained records. PJM's own service request pages warn that some older project data is retained for record purposes and that newer cycle data may be elsewhere. Therefore, the XML totals are not narration safe as a current active queue total. The third filter is process. PJM Manual 14H describes the new service request cycle process. A project developer does not simply declare a megawatt and become part of the reliable grid. The request must identify the point of interconnection, provide site control evidence, specify service type, and move through application review. The process then separates Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 system impact studies. After study phases, there are decision points. Manual 14H describes those decision points as 30 calendar day periods in which a customer decides whether to proceed, withdraw, provide required evidence and deposits, submit allowed modifications, or accelerate where applicable. A final agreement negotiation phase follows. This is why in the queue is not the same as available to serve load. The queue is a procedural status, and the procedure exists because the grid is physical. A proposed generator has to connect at a point on a network. It can require studies. It can require upgrades. It can change, stall, withdraw, reach agreement, begin construction, or eventually enter service. The fourth filter is counted capacity. PJM Manual 18 is the bridge from raw megawatts to reliability, relevant megawatts. It explains that effective load carrying capability establishes accredited UCAP for ELCC resources. It describes how historical hourly weather and load shapes are analyzed against hourly resource output to quantify a resource's ability to satisfy the reliability criterion. In plain language, a megawatt is not counted merely because equipment has a nameplate. It is counted according to what it can contribute when the system needs reliability. Manual 18 then adds the geography back in. Manual 18 then adds the geography back in. It says the first resource adequacy calculation assumes internal RTO transmission is adequate and generation can be delivered to load without transmission constraints. But because transmission may have limitations, PJM conducts a load deliverability analysis. The RTO is divided into locational deliverability areas. PJM compares the capacity emergency transfer objective with the capacity emergency transfer limit. If the import capability is lower than the objective, the region can face a locational constraint. This is the central mechanism of the episode. A megawatt can be real and still not be the megawatt that matters for a particular load in a particular constrained location at a particular time. The fifth filter is transmission. PJM's 2024 Regional Transmission Expansion Plan is the documentary layer that turns the method into concrete infrastructure. PJM reported that its RTEP process identified 63 new baseline projects in 2024 estimated at $5.9 billion to maintain fundamental grid reliability. It also reported 201 new network transmission projects estimated at $1.7 billion required to enable reliable delivery of generation seeking to connect to the PJM system. Those figures are not decoration. They show that new generation is not the end of the story. Delivery can require network work, baseline reliability work, substations, lines, transformers, protection systems, siting, engineering, outages, and time. A megawatt far from the load or blocked by insufficient import capability is not equivalent to a megawatt that can move through the network when needed. This is why headline megawatt claims fail. A headline can add nameplates together. A grid operator has to ask different questions. Is the load firm or non-firm? Which zone or LDA is it in? Is the project proposed, active, under construction, or in service? Is the capacity accredited? Does the resource have capacity interconnection rights where relevant? What does the deliverability analysis say? Are network upgrades required? Are those upgrades planned, approved, built, or energized? What date does the load need power? And what date can the system actually deliver it? The story is not that growth is impossible. PJM's documents are full of process, not surrender. Load forecasts are updated, queue reforms are implemented, system impact studies are issued, baseline and network projects are planned. The point is more disciplined. Aggregate megawatts become usable power only after they survive the conversion chain. There are unresolved questions. The queue snapshot is time-sensitive. RTEP projects can change. Load forecasts update annually and can move down as well as up when assumptions change. Rights-cleared footage has not been acquired. A final production cut must avoid implying that a generic substation shot depicts a specific PJM constraint. The episode also must not turn Northern Virginia or data centers into the entire story. PJM's own load forecast lists data center growth as one adjustment driver in many zones, but the documentary case is the broader market region mechanism. So the megawatts that matter are not the most impressive megawatts. They are the ones that pass the test, forecast need, real geography, interconnection progress, accredited contribution, transmission deliverability, and energization on the required timeline. Return to the map, put the queue table beside it, put the load forecast over it, put the Manual 18 deliverability ladder and the RTEP transmission map on top. Now the headline number has disappeared and the system is visible. A grid is not a spreadsheet of capacity claims. It is a bounded physical and institutional system. In PJM, that system gives us the documentary proof, the distance between the megawatts people announce and the megawatts that can actually serve a load. If this episode sharpened how you read grid announcements, subscribe to Quantum Convergence Energy and share it with someone who has to turn capacity claims into delivery plans. Judge the next headline by the test, not the total.